I never thought I'd find myself in a mess like this. Honestly, I felt like I was in some messed up movie where everything's supposed to be perfect until it all falls apart in slow motion. My wife, Sarah, and I had been together for almost 10 years. We were solid, lived in a decent apartment, shared the bills, went on vacations, had inside jokes that only we understood. Or at least, that's what I thought. Then everything changed the day I lost my job. It wasn't a huge company, just a small marketing firm I'd been working at for 5 years. The economy was rough and I got laid off without warning. My stomach sank, that sick feeling of utter uselessness. I sat in the living room, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Sarah was sympathetic, but I could tell she was just trying to keep it together for my sake. Still, I saw the flicker of concern in her eyes, the way she kept touching my shoulder. We decided to celebrate my resilience, or whatever you want to call it, that evening. I'd be lying if I said I was in the mood. But she kept pushing, saying, "Let's just forget everything for a night. We'll get through this." That was the plan: go out, have some drinks, maybe forget the gnawing anxiety for a little while. We went to our favorite little Italian place, dim, cozy, with that smell of garlic and basil filling the air. I ordered a plate of spaghetti carbonara, and Sarah got her usual margarita pizza. We clinked glasses, trying to act normal, but my mind kept circling back to the job. I stared at her across the table, trying to hide the bitterness that was bubbling up. I was angry at myself, at the world, and somewhere deep down, I guess I was angry at her too. That's when I saw it. I was scrolling through my phone while she was in the bathroom, just killing time. I wasn't snooping, just killing some time, honestly. Then I saw the message thread. My heart froze. The name was familiar. I recognized his contact picture instantly. Mark, my best friend since college. But what I saw in those messages hit me like a punch to the stomach. They'd been texting for weeks, maybe longer. Flirty comments, inside jokes that made my skin crawl. I could see the "can't wait to see you later" and "last night was incredible," all sent from her phone. I stared at the screen, feeling the cold sweat bead on my forehead. My stomach twisted hard and my fingers trembled as I read the words. I sat there, stunned. My head spun. I felt like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. I couldn't breathe. I looked over at the restroom door, waiting for her to come back, but all I could hear was the pounding in my ears. I clutched the phone tight, my palms slick with sweat. I wanted to scream, but I also knew I had to hold it together. When she finally returned, I was still staring at the screen, my mind racing. She looked at my face and immediately saw something was wrong. "Everything okay?" she asked, voice trembling. I just looked at her, my jaw clenched, feeling the rage simmering just beneath the surface. "I saw your messages," I finally said, voice hoarse. Her face went pale. "What?" "No, I don't know what you're talking about. But I had the proof right there." I shoved the phone across the table. "Don't lie to me. I saw everything, weeks of this. You've been cheating on me with my best friend." She stammered, trying to deny it, but I wasn't buying it. My world shattered in that moment. The restaurant's cozy atmosphere faded away, replaced by the thick, suffocating feeling of betrayal. I felt the heat rising in my chest, my fists clenched so tight I thought my nails might cut into my palms. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I just sat there trying to hold back the tidal wave of pain and fury. I knew then this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about how deeply I'd been betrayed, how much I'd been blind to the signs. But I also knew I couldn't just let this go. I needed a plan, something that would hit her where it hurt, something I could control. I was angry, yes, but part of me also felt calm in a twisted way. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I wasn't going down without a fight. I looked her in the eye and said, "You're leaving tonight, and don't bother trying to deny it. I want everything out in the open, because if I'm going to walk away from this, I'm going to do it on my own terms, on my own damn terms." She looked like a deer caught in headlights, and I knew deep down she hadn't expected me to find out like this. But it was too late now. I'd already started to see the pieces come together. That night, I didn't sleep much. My mind kept circling through the betrayal, the lies, the sense of loss. But somewhere in the back of my mind, a plan was already forming, cold, calculated, and relentless. I was done being the fool. I knew I'd get my revenge. I just didn't know how yet. The next few days were a blur of anger, confusion, and planning. I stayed home from work, not because I was feeling sorry for myself, but because I was already figuring out my next move. Every time I looked at her, I saw the betrayal sprawled across her face, and I could feel the hot flush of rage rising. I couldn't stand her near me, so I kept my distance, but my mind was everywhere, piecing together how I'd get back at her and Mark. The house felt colder than usual. It was funny how a few messages on a phone could turn your entire world upside down. I kept thinking about the things I missed, my quiet mornings, our inside jokes, the future we talked about. All gone in an instant. Yet it also sparked this strange clarity. I realized I had to act, not just for revenge, but to regain some sense of control. She shattered my trust, and I was going to make her regret it. I started by gathering evidence just in case I needed it. I didn't want to be careless. I knew enough about her. She was impulsive but also smart enough to cover her tracks. I installed a keylogger on her phone, nothing illegal, just enough to keep an eye on her messages. I didn't want to catch her in the act again. I wanted to understand her. Then I made a list of her habits, her routines, places she frequented. I wanted to know her pattern, her weaknesses. One afternoon, I decided to check her social media. Her Instagram was full of photos of us, happy moments, anniversary dinners, all fake now. I saw her comment on a friend post, "Can't wait to get away this weekend," with a winky emoji. My stomach clenched. She was planning something. I could feel it in my bones. That's when I knew I had to do more than just watch and wait. I reached out to Mark's wife. Her name was Lisa. I didn't know her well, but I knew enough that she was also blindsided by Mark's behavior. I told her everything I knew, carefully choosing my words. I didn't want to blow everything up in one go, but I wanted her to know what her husband was up to. I didn't trust Mark anymore, not after what I'd seen. Lisa was devastated, but she promised to keep an eye out and get back to me. That was the first piece of my plan falling into place. If Mark and Sarah thought they were sneaking around, I'd make sure they regretted it. I also started mapping out my revenge. I wasn't interested in petty destruction. I wanted something calculated, something that would leave a mark. I decided to confront Sarah in a way that would shake her foundation, something that would make her regret every moment she betrayed me. I wasn't going to ruin her life, but I'd make sure she knew I was in control, that if she thought she could cheat and get away, she'd think again. That evening, I sat in my car outside her favorite coffee shop. I had a flash drive with some of the messages from her phone, just enough to remind her how much I knew. I planned to leave it somewhere she'd find it, maybe in her purse or tucked into her makeup bag. I wanted her to realize I wasn't just angry, I was organized, deadly in my calm. I'd already decided that after our confrontation, I'd be gone. I'd pack a bag and leave, just to give her a taste of losing everything she thought she had. The moment I saw her walk out of the coffee shop, my heart started pounding hard. She looked the same, just a little more tense. I waited until she reached her car, then I approached her. "Sarah," I said, voice steady. She looked surprised, maybe a little scared. "We need to talk." She looked around nervously and tried to brush past me. "I don't think there's anything to say," she muttered. I held out the flash drive. "I think there is. I think you should see this." Her eyes darted to the small device in my hand, and for a second her face went blank. I saw the panic settle in, and I could feel my own adrenaline spike. "I know about Mark," I said softly but firmly, "and I know about your plans for the weekend." Her shoulders sagged, but her face fought to stay composed. "Look, I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake. I was drunk." "No," I interrupted sharply. "You made a choice. You and Mark, you decided to cheat. You decided to betray everything we built." I took a step closer. "That's why I'm leaving tonight, and I want you to know I've already made up my mind about how this ends." Her eyes flickered with guilt and something else, fear maybe. But I wasn't about to back down. I handed her the drive. "See for yourself. And just so you know, I've got more than enough evidence to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are." Her face twisted with regret, but I saw the flicker of relief too. She thought she might be able to talk her way out of it, not this time. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there clutching that tiny piece of metal. My stomach was still churning, but I felt a strange sense of calm. I'd begun executing my plan. It was only the beginning, but I knew one thing. I was done being the fool. From this moment on, she'd regret crossing me. The next morning, I woke up feeling like a cloud had finally lifted from my head. The weight of betrayal still pressed down, but now I had a plan. Shit was starting to come together in a way that made me feel like I still had some control over my life. I packed a bag with essentials, stuff I'd need if I was going to disappear for a while. Not because I was planning to run away from her, but because I wanted to be ready for when I executed the next phase of my revenge. I remember standing in my apartment, feeling the cold of the floor beneath my feet, the cold air sneaking in through the cracked window because I'd forgotten to close it. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. I was about to leave, but I hesitated for a second, thinking about how much I'd lost, my job, my trust, my peace of mind. Yet there was this flicker of clarity. I was going to make her pay for what she did. Something about that thought made my fists clenched so tight my knuckles ached. I knew I couldn't just leave things as they were. I had to escalate. I remembered the small black notebook I kept, details of every little thing I noticed about her habits, her secret spots, her vulnerabilities. I grabbed it, flipping through the pages, and found what I needed. Her favorite wine, her secret coffee spot, the silly little habits she thought no one saw. I would use that against her. I had also set up a fake email account, a burner one. I started sending her anonymous messages. Nothing overt, just enough to create suspicion. "I know what you did," I wrote one morning. "You're not as clever as you think." I wanted her to feel like someone was watching her, that her lies were about to unravel even more. But I also kept quiet. This was just the beginning. That afternoon, I drove to her favorite coffee shop. I left the small flash drive on the counter, tucked into a napkin with a note. "For Sarah, your choice." I watched from a distance as she arrived, looked around nervously, then spotted it. Her eyes widened as she picked it up and read the note. I saw her stiffen, her face draining of color. That was exactly what I wanted, to make her realize I was serious. She looked around, probably trying to figure out who left it. I ducked behind a parked car, watching her open the drive and plug it into her phone. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the files. I saw her hand tremble. Good. That meant she was genuinely rattled. I felt a flicker of satisfaction, but I knew better than to get cocky. I was just getting started. Later that day, I texted Lisa again, warning her about Mark's plans. I told her to be careful, to watch her husband's moves. I didn't tell her everything, but enough to make her suspicious. That was part of the plan. Seed doubt, create chaos. Mark was slippery, but I knew him well enough. He loved his reputation, his secret affairs, his sneaky ways. Now it was time to use that against him. I also reached out to a divorce lawyer I'd found online, just so I had someone on standby. I didn't want to be unprepared if things got worse. The idea of walking away from everything I'd built crushed me, but I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my strength. I had to do this my way, on my terms. That evening I sat on my balcony, listening to the distant hum of the city. The sky was painted with dull oranges and purples. I took a deep breath and stared at the stars, knowing I was about to take the next step. I had everything lined up now, her doubts, her fears. I had the evidence, the motive, the timing. All I needed was one final push. I decided to send her an email, not from my account but from the fake one. Just enough to make her think I was watching, waiting. "You've played your hand," I wrote. "Now I'll play mine." The words felt heavy, full of promise. I knew she'd panic once she saw it. I knew she'd try to cover her tracks, but I had her cornered. The plan was set. Tomorrow I would confront her with everything I'd collected. I would give her one last chance to come clean. After that, I was walking out. No more hiding, no more pretending. I'd finally take control, whatever that looked like. I closed my eyes for a second and felt the roughness of my palms, the pounding of my heart. I was exhausted, but I knew I couldn't stop now. This was my fight, and I was going to see it through no matter what. I had nothing left to lose. I only knew one thing: she was about to learn that betrayal comes with a price, and I was the one paying it. The next morning, I woke up feeling the kind of calm that only comes after you've set everything in motion. I knew the moment to strike was near. I took a slow breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, and looked around my apartment, my sanctuary, now feeling more like a battlefield. Every detail seemed sharper, more purposeful. I knew Sarah would crack soon, but I also knew I had to be ready. For her reaction, whatever that might be, I brewed a strong cup of coffee, black and bitter, just like my mood. I sat on the balcony watching the city wake up, the early morning noise a dull hum in the background. My phone buzzed, an anonymous message. "You're watching her, huh?" It read. My stomach tightened, but I kept my face still. I responded with a simple "good." She needs to know I'm serious. The message disappeared. I didn't reply further. This was part of the plan, keep her paranoid, keep her guessing. By mid-morning, I was ready. I had the evidence on the flash drive, the emails I'd sent, the recordings I'd secretly made, small, silent, but enough to destroy her if I played it right. I knew I had to be strategic. I didn't want to just blow everything up in one go. I wanted her to panic, to second-guess every move. That's when I decided to face her directly. I texted her, "Can we meet? Need to talk." No reply. I wasn't surprised. I didn't need her to reply right away. I knew she'd come to me sooner or later. I parked my car a few blocks away from her apartment and waited. Every second ticked by slow, yet each one felt like a hammer pounding in my head. I was nervous, more about losing control than anything else. She finally appeared at around noon, stepping out of her building. She looked tense, clutching her purse tightly. When she saw me, she hesitated, but I nodded. "Let's go somewhere quiet," I said calmly. She nodded back silently, and we walked to a nearby park, a place where we wouldn't be disturbed. I needed her alone with no distractions. We sat on a bench, the autumn air crisp around us. I took a deep breath and looked her straight in the eyes. "Sarah, I know what you did with Mark. I saw the messages. I have everything on this," I said, holding up the flash drive. Her face went pale. She tried to speak, but no words came out. "I'm not here to yell," I continued, voice steady but controlled. "I just want to know why. Why betray me like this?" Her eyes darted away, tears forming in the corners. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to get this far." I shook my head. "That's bullshit. You made a choice, and you've been lying to my face for weeks. I've been watching you, Sarah, watching you cheat, watching you betray everything we had." The words felt heavy on my tongue, but they needed to come out. I wanted her to understand the depth of her betrayal. She looked down, silent, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was lonely," she finally admitted. "I didn't want to hurt you, but Mark, he made me feel alive again. I swear I didn't plan for it to go this far." Her voice broke. "Please, I didn't mean for it to ruin everything." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to scream or lash out. Instead, I leaned back and took a long, slow breath. "You should have thought about that before you crossed the line, before you decided to cheat on me with my best friend. That's not just a mistake, that's a choice you made deliberately." I paused, feeling the heat rise in my chest. "And now I'm done. Done trusting you. Done pretending everything's okay." Her lips trembled, and she looked at me with guilt and despair. "Please don't do this. I'll fix it, I swear. Just give me a chance to make this right." Her voice was pleading, but I felt nothing but cold resolve. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "You want to fix this?" I asked. "Then here's what's going to happen." I handed her the phone where I'd preloaded the evidence, the messages, the recordings, everything that proved her infidelity. "You're going to check that. And after that, I want you to understand that I don't trust you anymore, not a bit." She stared at the screen, trembling, her eyes filling with tears. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered. "I was stupid. I was weak." She looked desperate, but I was past caring. I wanted her to see what she'd done, see the damage she'd caused. "I want you out of the apartment by tonight," I said firmly. "And I want you to think long and hard about what you really want, because I'm done being the fool. If you want to keep pretending this never happened, go ahead. But I won't be here to pick up the pieces anymore." She nodded silently, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said softly. That was all she could manage. I looked at her one last time, then turned away, feeling the cold dread in my stomach. I knew I was about to make her regret every single lie. And I was finally starting to believe I'd get what I wanted, some semblance of justice. As I walked back towards my car, I felt the weight of everything I'd set in motion. This was just the start. The real game was about to begin. That evening, I came home prepared. I'd spent the day making sure everything was in place. My plan was coming to life, and I was eager to see how far I could push her. I didn't want to just humiliate her. I wanted her to understand she'd lost her safety net, her comfort, her little world in one blow. I had the keys to the apartment in my pocket, but I didn't plan on giving her a chance to pack quietly. I wanted her to know I meant business. When I opened the door, the silence hit me like a punch. The apartment was darker than usual, curtains drawn. I'd told her I'd be back late, but I'd actually been here for hours waiting for her to come home. She was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, her face pale, eyes red-rimmed. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. I didn't say a word. I just walked in, holding the flash drive in my hand. "Your stuff's already packed," I said calmly. "You're leaving tonight." She looked at me, trembling. "Please," she whispered, "don't do this. I'll fix everything, I swear, just give me another chance." I said sharply, cutting her off. "You lost that chance when you decided to cheat, when you betrayed me with Mark. I don't trust you anymore, and I don't want you here. Take your things, leave, and don't come back." She started crying, a raw, guttural sound that tore at my stomach. "I never meant to hurt you," she begged, voice cracking. "It was a mistake. I was weak. Please, I can change. Just give me one more shot." I shook my head. "You had your shot. It's over." I held out the flash drive. "Check this, see what you've done. Maybe then you'll understand how much damage you caused." Her hands trembled as she took it, her eyes fixed on the screen. I saw her face crumble as she saw the evidence, proof of her betrayal, her lies. While she was distracted, I took a step back and grabbed the bag I'd packed earlier. I was ready to go, but I wanted her to see I wasn't bluffing. "You need to understand, I'm done being the fool here," I told her. "You're out of my life, and I don't want to see you again. Ever." She looked up at me, tears streaming, voice barely a whisper. "Please don't do this. I love you. I'll do anything, just don't walk away." I felt my jaw tight. The last thing I wanted was to turn this into a shouting match, but I knew she needed to see I was serious. "You've already made your choice," I said. "Now I'm making mine." I gently pushed her aside and headed to the door. Before I left, I handed her one last letter I'd written earlier that day. It was simple, just a few words about how she'd lost her chance, that she'd betrayed the best thing that ever happened to her. I didn't want her to think I was just angry. I wanted her to remember she threw it all away. I turned the key in the lock, took a deep breath, and stepped out into the night. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I knew I'd done what I needed to do, but part of me still felt hollow. Still, I reminded myself, no one gets to betray me and walk away unscathed. As I drove away, I saw her standing in the doorway, watching me leave. I watched her silhouette shrink in the distance, then disappeared behind the closing door. I knew she'd be thinking about what just happened, about her choices, her mistakes. And I, for the first time in days, felt a flicker of hope. I'd taken back my power. I'd finally done something that felt right. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I was still standing. That's what matters. I didn't need her anymore, not her lies, not her betrayal. I just needed to move on. The truth is, sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about reclaiming your dignity. And that's exactly what I was doing. The days that followed were a strange mix of emptiness and clarity. I drove out of town for a while just to clear my head, leaving the wreckage behind. Every mile I put between us felt like a weight lifting, but also like I was stepping into an uncertain future. Honestly, I'd never felt so alone, but at the same time I felt lighter, like I'd finally taken control of my life again. I went through the motions, changed my number, canceled all the joint accounts, and started focusing on myself. It wasn't easy. There were nights I'd lie awake, replaying everything in my head, her betrayal, Mark's lies, my own heartbreak. But gradually, each day got easier. I realized I didn't need her to define me anymore. I was still here, still standing. One afternoon, I finally handed over the keys to the apartment. I sat with my lawyer, signing the papers. I watched as the familiar home I built with her was transferred to someone else. It was painful, but also strangely freeing. I looked at the empty space where her things once sat and told myself, that chapter is closed now. After I left, I blocked her on everything, social media, my phone, even her email. I wanted distance, space to breathe, to rebuild. I knew she'd try to contact me, maybe apologize or beg for another chance, but I wasn't interested. Not anymore. I had seen what she was capable of, and I refused to be a pawn in her game of guilt and manipulation. In the weeks that followed, I started reconnecting with old friends, focusing on work and rediscovering what made me happy. I took long walks, listened to music that made me feel alive, and even picked up some new hobbies. Slowly, I felt the weight of betrayal lift. I started trusting myself again. Looking back, I realized that what I went through was one of the hardest things I've ever faced. But it taught me something crucial, that even in the darkest moments, you have a choice. You can let betrayal destroy you, or you can use it to rebuild stronger. I chose the latter. I took my pain, my anger, and turned them into a shield, something that made me more aware, more cautious, but also more resilient. I still think about her sometimes, about all the trust we lost, but I know I'll never let myself be that blind again. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't make excuses. Don't wait for the signs to get worse. Because once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone in a similar situation, it's simple. Get out before it's too late. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And never forget, you are stronger than the pain and you deserve truth and respect. That's what I hold on to now. The betrayal was brutal, but it set me free. I'm not perfect and I still have scars, but I'm alive, I'm healing, and I'm finally moving forward. And honestly, that's all I ever wanted.